Hello, one and all. This is Caleb Jones, and this is Sovereign CEO, soon to be named something else. I'll address that in a minute. Today, we're going to discuss time management directly as related to how much money you make for the time you spend doing something. I'm going to go into detail about that. In about a half an hour, we're going to introduce a new segment to the Sovereign CEO live stream podcast. That is, unless she can't make it, I believe she can, ask your business auntie, Billy Olds will be on here for a business Q&A. She'll be in here in about half an hour, unless she can't make it. I'm pretty sure she can. Before we get started with the topic, two things. One is, if you haven't already gotten the emails and the notifications, I'm changing the name of Sovereign CEO for a number of reasons. You can read on the YouTube community channels for either one of my channels, or if you're my mailing list, I sent emails about this. And so what we're going to do is I sent a survey out of 6 names that we came up with. We had 2 winners, but enough people said they didn't like any of the names. So what we're doing now is we're soliciting new names, new suggestions. We have put those on the mailing list and both YouTube community channels of both Sovereign CEO and Alpha Male 2.0. And we're soliciting more suggestions just for the next maybe half a day or so. Then we'll do another survey with all the names, or just about all of them. You guys are going to pick the ones you like. The 6 ones, the ones that the top 6 that get the most votes, we'll do a third survey, and you will pick among those top 6. And then the winner will be the ones you guys pick, unless I hate it, and or unless I can't get the domain name for it, and then I'll pick the second or third one. That's what we'll do. So democracy in action, even though I'm against democracy. But in terms of my audience, I don't mind democracy. That's fine, because as always, I see, though, this content is not for me. This content is for you. So there you go. That's the first thing. Second thing I want to address, let's see, what was the other thing I want to talk about really quick? Tucker Carlson, some of you saw this, did a big interview with Vladimir Putin a few days ago. And it was very good. And it's the kind of interview that you won't get on mainstream media. So I thought it was very, very good. A few points to pull from what Putin said on that. And it's the points that you probably didn't pay attention to. Often when you hear these world leaders talk, these politicians talk, the big stuff they say that everyone talks about is actually the least important shit. The most important things they say are the little side comments that they don't really follow up on. And this is a good example of this. Putin was, first of all, Putin spent the first 45 minutes of the podcast, or the interview, I should say, if you watched it, going through its very detailed Russian history, going back to the year 1900, all the way back when it was Rus, and, you know, all the way through. And a bunch of people in the comments, Trump supporters, right-wingers, who like Putin, had this weird love affair with Putin, said, can you imagine Joe Biden giving a 45-minute detailed oration on American history, just like Putin did on Russian history? And they went, there's no way. Correct, there is no way. But guess what, dumbasses? Imagine Trump doing the same thing. He can't either. So realize, Americans, you Americans, this year you're going to pick between 2 morons who could not do a basic thing in terms of discussing their own country's history for 45 minutes like Putin the dictator could. So how does that make you feel? Trump couldn't do it, and Biden couldn't do it. Neither one couldn't do it. And those are your 2 choices this year to run your country. So once again, you should be embarrassed to be an American. And again, I stopped voting in, elections 25 years ago. Voting doesn't work anymore. It doesn't matter who you vote for at this point. America's going down. Voting has become a emotional exercise, and it has been for a long, long time. This isn't anything new. That was the first thing. Second thing about Putin's, this is a few items. I didn't write any notes, just a few things in my memory here. What else did he say? Oh, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, one of these little side comments. I went, oh my goodness. So Putin mentioned just casually that several years ago, only 3% of Russian transactions were done with yuan, which is Chinese currency, the renminbi, their version of the dollar. Only 3%. Today, 34% of all international Russian transactions are done with Chinese currency. Wow. That is a bigger import than when the war in Ukraine ends, which it'll eventually end. And it should have ended a while ago. One thing that Putin said I didn't like is that Tucker said, look, can't you end the war now? Don't you have what you want? And Putin said, no, we have to keep fighting because denazization. So Putin's argument is, of course, and it's not really his argument, he's lying, but I have to kill hundreds of thousands of civilians because there are a few statues of people who fought on the side of the Nazis in World War II in Ukraine. Insane and stupid and ridiculous, of course. But it goes back to China, and Putin did say several times, look, he said, Russia isn't the threat. Russia isn't the emergency economy. It's China. And he kept talking, giving statistics about how, as I reported my blogs many years ago, China is the number one economy in the world based on purchasing power parity, PPP, and it is. And it's still growing at 5%, whereas the Western world is growing at -% or 2% at best. And a lot of that growth is government growth, which I've talked about doesn't really count. I have said many times that GDP is not a good measurement of how well a country is doing because GDP includes government growth. So if you just get a big government person in there like Donald Trump, the biggest big government president in world history, who jacks up debt and deficit spending faster than any other president before him, and just jacks up government spending like Trump did, like George W. Bush did, like Obama did somewhat, then yes, your GDP will increase. And people say, look, see, we're doing well. GDP is increasing. Yeah, because you're spending trillions of dollars more in the government. I mean, Americans spent $13 trillion on COVID and got nothing for it. You spent 16 trillion, $16 trillion on COVID and you got nothing for it when you're already collapsing. You spent 12 trillion on war in Iraq and got nothing for it. Yeah, your GDP is going to reflect these numbers. Say, see, GDP, looking good, Caleb. See, no, you're screwed. Yeah, one of you saying, I see people use GDP while people are barely getting by. Correct. Same exact, very similar to the U.S. stock market, which both Trump and Obama said, isn't this great? The stock market is an artificial bubble of large companies borrowing money to buy back their own stock. It is not an accurate representation of any positive economic activity. And so you'll have this booming stock market. People can't get a job. Yeah. Yep. And both Trump and Obama said, look at the stock market. Isn't this great? It's because of me. No. Now, what's interesting about Trump, I mentioned this in my blogs too. Right before Trump was elected, he said, honestly, when Obama was president, stock market's a big bubble. This is all bullshit. This is bad. The split second he becomes president, he says, look at the great stock market. See, isn't that awesome? That's because of me. Again, your two choices, Biden and Trump. Biden and Trump. Biden? Biden and Trump. So it was a very interesting interview. I thought it was very good. Tucker asked good questions. I'm glad he did that. But it is sad that right-wingers have this weird love affair with Putin. Putin is a murderous dictator who kills lots of innocent people. And I'm against the war in Ukraine, just like I was against the war in Iraq, just like I was against staying in Afghanistan. I have been against every American war since World War II. I'm a minarchist libertarian, and I walk my talk. And even World War II, I have serious problems with what the United States did and other countries did in that war. So there you go. What are some of your favorite podcasts to listen to for entertainment? I don't listen to podcasts for entertainment. Don't do it. I mean, I do listen to, that's not true. That's a false statement. There are times I listen to comedy podcasts like the Bad Friends podcast and the Dudesy podcast. I don't listen to the whole podcast. I don't have time. So comedian podcasts a little bit. Sometimes do that. Yeah. Let's see. What else do I want to talk about before we get into the topic? There was something else. What was it? Putin, the name change, and something else. I don't remember. For these initial things, I don't make notes. I just rely on my horrible memory. So there you go. I'm going to take a drink. Hang on. One of you is asking about testosterone. Ask me that on my other channel, please. Yes, Billy, for those of you just joining us, Billy should be coming on in about 20 minutes for a Q&A. Ask Your Business Auntie, a new segment here. If this works well and you guys like this and Billy likes it, we'll do it every other Sovereign CEO live stream podcast. We'll have Billy come on for half an hour, 45 minutes. You can ask her business questions because she comes at this from a different perspective than I do. She's much more operational into warm contacts, networking. I own 2.5 companies. She owns 11 or has, on the board or stock or equity. No, she has equity, at least 11 companies. So she's a fucking maniac like I am, but just in a different way. So yeah, she'll be coming out shortly. Unless she can't make it. Last I heard, she's able to make it. We'll see. What advice do you have for LIDIGs, low-income dumb guys? Well, there's a difference between dumb and ignorant. There's a big difference. Dumb means you're dumb. Low IQ, you can't learn stuff because you're literally born dumb. Not much you can do about those people. Most people who are dumb are not dumb. They're ignorant. They don't know anything because they went to standard public education or private education, which is almost just as bad. So they graduate high school and they don't know who do America fight in World War II? They don't know. So that's ignorant, not dumb. And you can fix ignorance by reading and listening to certain podcasts. I didn't go to college, but I read several hundred books. I think it was a number in my 20s in lieu of going to college because I knew I can't be ignorant. I have to know these things. So I educated myself. So the answer, if you are ignorant, is that you learn. Now, the problem is you don't want to learn too much. You'll turn into a LISIG. LISIGs is someone who keeps learning forever and never doing anything. So the risk for most of you in my audience is not read more. The risk for most of you in my audience is stop fucking reading and get to goddamn work, which I've said 10,000 times. There's a whole section in my new book, The Unchained Man, on LISIGs. Put a whole section there. So I don't even want to say, go do more research, guys. No, the majority of you, or at least the plurality of you, I don't know what the exact percentage is. The plurality or the majority of you have researched way too much. You know way too much. Stop reading books, stop listening to people, and start executing. Matter of fact, I saw Dana White, brief interview, and the guy asked him, what is your main piece of advice? And Dana White's main piece of advice is don't listen to anyone. No one can give you advice because no one's you. Just execute. Get out there and get to work. Stop listening to people. Yeah, he's right. Correct. All right, I'm going to start with the topic. If Billy comes on, when she's expected to come on in about 20 minutes, I will pause the topic and start up when she comes on. Cool? Cool. All right. Hang on. I'm going to get another drink of water. Hang on. Okay. Should I be bigger? No. I'll be small. I'm small. I'm little. If you are listening to the podcast, I'm just bringing up kind of a structure, but I'm going to verbalize it so you don't need to worry about this if you can't physically see this. We're going to discuss time ROI. So the amount of time you spend in a given segment of time, a given hour, a given day, a given week, a given month, a given quarter, a given year, a given 10 years. Doesn't matter what the time management is. You can have high ROI in your time or low ROI in your time. And the objective, of course, is to have high ROI. I have extremely high ROI in my time. I'm going to tell you exactly, as compared to most people, I'm going to tell you exactly why and how you can make your time very high ROI. It is a multiplier effect of several things. They all multiply each other. It's an exponential growth type of thing. So that's why 1 hour of my time, I mean this literally now, and you'll find out at the end of this, 1 hour of my time, I'm talking about work now. To be clear, I'm talking about specifically work. I'm not talking about fitness or your personal life or that stuff. Today's just about work. The sovereignty, we're talking about work here, okay? 1 hour of my typical work has a higher ROI than most normal people have in a given 2 or 3 weeks of their work. What? Yes, and I'll show you exactly why. Because I have several multiples in place that increase my time ROI. Make sense? I'll go this as I go along. So the first thing is your unit of time. Whatever you're talking about in terms of per what? ROI per, and then insert whatever unit of time you're thinking of. This could be an hour of work, a typical work day, a typical work week, a typical work month, a typical quarter, a typical year, it could go 5 years. It doesn't really matter. Make sense? So whatever the unit of time, I'm giving you a mathematical formula, whatever unit of time you start with, doesn't really matter, okay? Let's say day, but it doesn't really matter. Times multiplied by your physical state while you work. So your physical state, that would be things like how much sleep did you get last night? If you got less than 7 hours, you're at a weakened, reduced physical state. So your time ROI is going to be lower than mine because I get 8.5 hours, 8.5 to 8 hours and 50 minutes every fucking night, 7 nights a week. I make goddamn sure that happens because I want maximum time ROI. Other things. Did you drink coffee this morning? The vast majority of you did, because you live in a society where false societal programming has said drugs are bad, drugs are bad, drugs are bad, except coffee. Coffee's great. Caffeine's great. No side effects of caffeine. Awesome. Go drink all the coffee you want. Same thing with weed, same thing with cigarettes, same thing with alcohol. These are acceptable drugs. All the other drugs are bad. No, actually, all drugs are bad, including weed. That's another one. Did you smoke a whole bunch of weed today? If you didn't, great. You probably drank a bunch of coffee, which means at about 2 p.m. you're going to start to crash. Do you get more coffee or something else? I don't drink coffee. I don't do any drugs. I've never done a drug in my entire life. I don't do coffee. Coffee is caffeine. Coffee is a drug. So I don't do it. What I do in the morning is I drink 45 swallows of slightly salted water. That's what I do. And I don't need any coffee. I have more energy. My physical state, I have more energy. I've said this many times and it's true because I know people like this. I have more daily energy throughout the 15 hours in a given day than most men who are half my age, literally, and I'm overweight. Why? Because I make sure my physical state is at peak levels. I didn't say physical fitness. That's different. I said physical state. Okay? Another thing. What did you eat today? Particularly, did you eat any high glycemic carbs today? Did you have a sandwich with a bunch of bread on it? Did you have a bunch of rice? Did you have a bunch of pasta? Did you have a donut? Did you do that today? You're going to be in a weaker, more depressed, more deficient physical state. I'm going to tell you exactly what I ate today. This is literally what I've eaten since it's nighttime here. It's 10 p.m. here in Dubai. I wake up late because I stay up late. I get my 8.5 hours. So from the moment I woke up to now, here's what I've eaten. I'll tell you exactly what I've eaten. I've eaten 4 eggs, protein. I've eaten a little thing of cottage cheese, more protein. I've eaten a big hunk of vegetable mix, which is broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. And I've had 2 of those little naked bars I've talked about. It's a little fruit bar where it has literally just 4 ingredients like dates, blueberries, cashews, almonds, and it's cold pressed. And they're like that big, they're very small. I've had 2 of those. What else do I have? That's it. So how much carbs have I really had? Yes, I've had fruits and vegetables. They're carbs, but they're barely carbs. I've had nothing high glycemic, so I have high energy all day. I do that on purpose. All right? Now, you can still go over your calories eating healthy food. I do it all the fucking time. But at least you're in a high physical state. Right? Other things. What does your hormonal profile look like? Now, this is a topic from my other channel. Testosterone, estrogen, thyroid, T3, vitamin D, and if you're a woman, progesterone. What does that look like? It's probably all fucked up because you don't check it. I check mine every year. I want to be in peak physical state when I work. I want high ROI on my time. Okay. What else is physical state? How much sleep you've had, coffee, what you've eaten. Exercise. I forgot. When is the last time you exercised really hard? The answer should be sometime in the last 48 hours. If you have not exercised hard in the last 48 hours, you are at a reduced physical state. I didn't mean you just exercised. You could have done it last night. 48 hours is okay. You don't have to be a fitness maniac. I'm certainly not. But I exercise almost every day, 6 days a week. Hard. Okay? If you want to do it every day, fine. Every 48 hours. You'll have higher physical energy. You'll have more oxygen in the brain, especially if you do cardio. We could get into details, the weeds about what exercise is best for physical energy. Cardio is really good because it increases oxygen flow to the brain. Just lifting weights with no cardio isn't ideal. Just like just cardio and no weightlifting is also not ideal. Topic from another channel. Okay, and I'm not a fitness expert. I'm just telling you how this works. Okay, so physical state. I'm going to get a higher ROI on my time at a peak physical state than most people who have horrible physical states. The typical average Westerner today in the collapsing Western world doesn't get enough sleep. Oh, water. I didn't think of water. How much water have you drank today? Water or tea without caffeine. So water or decaffeinated tea. Both those are good. Anything else is bad or doesn't count as water. How much water have you drank? So the vast majority of people in the Western world not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough water, eating garbage. Most people aren't exercising. So they're in horrible physical states. They don't get work done. They don't get shit done. They're distracted. They're tired. They're sleepy. They're pissed off. They're edgy. They're mad about politics. Why? Because you haven't enough sleep. Haven't any water, moron. So you fix that. So unit of time times your physical state times your level of focus. So that's several things. One aspect of focus is your environment. There's two aspects of focus. There's your internal brain and your environment. What is in your office or where you're working that distracts you? Do you live with other people? Do you let your spouse, girlfriend, or boyfriend come in and bug you whatever the fuck they want? A lot of you do this. Stupid. Pink Firefly, my wife, has a do not disturb time between 10:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. She's not allowed to bother me. We live together right now. For the moment, we don't. We normally do. It's not allowed to bother me unless someone is bleeding or dying. That's her rule. Bleeding or dying, you can bother me. Otherwise, you better not bother me till 4. Because I need to focus. Or if you have little kids, are your kids running into your office and, Daddy? No, that's not going to work. Now you want to focus. See, I focus. Do you have distractions in your office? Do you have shit all over your walls? Right? You'll notice that Alex Hormozi, I don't know if he still does this, he works in this little tiny closet. Why does he do that? He doesn't want any distractions. Right. What do you hear? Do you have neighbors screaming and yelling and, banging on the walls and construction sounds and all that crap? Okay, look what I use. These are Sony noise-canceling headphones. No, not Sony, Bose. Bose noise-canceling headphones. They cost about $300. So the best $300 you'll ever use. I wear these often when I work. Can't hear anything. It's great. Okay? Earbuds don't do it. They don't block the noise as well as those. And I bring those when I travel too. Because I don't want distractions. I've shown this before. This is kind of funny. Let me zoom myself in again. These are my focus goggles. They're hilarious. Okay, now if you're listening to the podcast, this is just a safety plastic see-through goggles you get on Amazon for $3 with duct tape. There's this little thing in the middle. I'll wear them. This is how I look. Look like a robot nerd from the 80s, right? Now what this does is I can only see right here. I can't see anything around me. I'll wear these on the plane too. If someone starts playing a movie, I'll wear this. Okay? Because I can focus. You're like, well, that's ridiculous. Okay, maybe I'm going extreme, but I want ROI on my time. It's very simple, right? Hey, Billy, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Billy. Okay, cool. I'll bring you on in a sec. Remind me when Billy is done, if we get done with Billy. And if Billy goes the rest of the time, which is fine with me, then I'll pick up at focus. Remind me I was on focus, okay, for the ROI stuff. Focus. What am I saying about focus before I let her go? Focus. If I make cooler versions of glasses, would you buy them, the focus ones? No, I would not. I don't care how cool things are. I'm location dependent. All right. Let me bring on Billy. Hang on a moment. Beep, 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 beep. Say something. See if I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hang on, mute tab. I cannot hear you. Let me make sure that's not me, though. Hang on.
I cannot hear you, Caleb.
Can you hear me now? I can hear you now. Okay, hang on. You can't hear me? It's on you.
You think it's on my end?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not sure what's happening. Let's try this.
Technology is our favorite thing. Let me pull this up here while she's thinking. Hang on a minute. Someone is saying I should move my audience over time to Rumble. YouTube fucking sucks. Well, I know they suck. I've been saying this for a long time. Yeah, correct. When's the next deadline to sign up for 90 Day Business Builder? I don't know yet. Caleb, do you have tips on how to... Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Turn your volume down a little bit.
Okay, how's that?
That's good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
Hey.
If you guys don't know who this is, I think most of you do. There's always new people. This is people are helping you. Can you see the chat? Can you see the comments, Billy?
No, I can't.
So you can't. Why not? Why doesn't it let you?
I don't know. I've
I don't know.
never used
So
this.
if you look on the right-hand side, it says comments, banners,
There
brand.
we go.
You see that? Yeah. You can see the comments.
Okay, it looks
You
like
should-
they're supposed to start popping up. We'll see.
Okay. You don't see anything yet?
No.
Okay, hang on. I'm
And
gonna
it
put a
doesn't
comment.
give me the same options it does you.
Well, it should, but hang on. Maybe I gotta give you admin rights. This might be my stupid thing. Kick from studio, ban from studio, edit mic settings, edit name. No. Do you see Nick D saying, "Hey, Billy"? Do you see that?
No, nothing. I just see show chat, which I have,
Yeah.
and hide
Yes.
chat. But when I hit
Show
show chat,
chat.
nothing happens.
Are you maximized?
Yes.
Fuck, man. Let me see if there's anything else I do. Otherwise, I'll just read you the questions. That sucks. I want you to see the chat.
Oh,
We'll have to
was
fix this for
thinking
next time.
too.
Fuck. Okay, hang on. There's probably some stupid ass setting that I have to click, and I haven't clicked it in StreamYard. Hang on.
All right, I'm looking at
No.
my settings too. See if there's anything.
I think it's my settings. I don't think it's you. Oh, here we go. Let me look at settings. Guests. Okay, here we go. Guests can see viewer comments and posts, and it's checked. Guests can stream this. Guest play sound. Guest must authenticate. Yeah, you should be able to see it. Weird. Guests can see all viewer comments in the studio.
Found it.
Yay!
Hi,
You see all of them
everyone.
or just the latest ones?
I can see a bunch of things.
Okay,
Oh
cool.
boy, it looks like
Scroll to
I'm
the
going
bottom.
back a while.
Okay, scroll to the very bottom.
Added there. Hey, Harvey. Auntie Billy
You
is
see it?
glad to see you.
Okay, cool. All right. Awesome. So I'm going to introduce Billy, then I'll have her introduce herself, and then we'll do some Q&A. So Billy is someone I've been working with for 10,000 years,
Yes.
since 2018, right? I always forget.
Yes.
2018. You have our business
17 or
anniversary.
18.
You have that date. You have that date too. I always forget that it's like April or something. I forget.
It's April. It's in my calendar. I just know when it pops up.
We have a business anniversary that we celebrate like a married couple. Yeah, I think it's April of 2018 is what I want to say. Because that's
Sounds
when I made
about
the big
right.
decision to scale. That sounds about right. Is that right? Jesus, that's 5 years or will be 5 years?
No, we're past that. It's 6.
No, 6 or no, I can't do math. 6 years. So a long time. Billy is involved in or has equity in, I believe the number is 11 companies. I was just talking about you earlier about this. I was bragging about you earlier.
I've actually narrowed that down. I've dropped down to 9. So it's
well, good for you. I think 11's insane.
One I sold, one I decided to just put on the shelf because I wasn't interested in it anymore. So that's kind of where it's at.
Cool. Okay. Still insane, but that's fine. I say 3 companies. I was like, oh my God. But that's why you're here. I was mentioning earlier, you have a different structure for these things than I do. And you come about growing your businesses differently than I do. And because you're very into networking, there's a bunch of things you're into that I'm not. Networking and operational stuff and some other things. And we have this is our new segment. We're going to try this. We're going to do this maybe every other Sovereign CEO live stream podcast. We'll bring on Billy, and Billy will you already have questions. You see them? There's one for
Yes.
We're going to bring on Billy to have an open business Q&A. I've told Billy she can have topics if she wants. I don't think we need them. I think I can come up with stuff. We need to have topics, but she can answer questions in a way that she's a high income earner, location dependent. She follows all the models that we talk about here. She does them differently than I do. And so that's why it's better for you to hear a different perspective than just me all the time, who is still living this same business structure and lifestyle model, but comes at it from a different position. Plus, Billy is the key player of the 9-day business builder program. So she's also, by the way, if you do any residency stuff, except for Dubai, Billy is like the lead on that. You're coming to Paraguay, right? In
oh my
summer?
gosh, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah.
I love Paraguay.
Okay, right. So, by the way, I have dates now. Finally, we'll talk offline.
Good.
it'll be in well, I'll talk about it offline.
July.
I'm going to be there for like I'm going to be there from July, August, September. I'll be at 3 months this time. I can't wait. I'm so excited. You want to say a few words about yourself in case people for the people who don't know who you are? We've done several podcasts together. She's been around a lot. And when Billy's not here, people get sad and cry. And they say, where the hell's Billy? So I brought her back. But anyway, Billy, go ahead. Then we'll get to questions.
So consider me your business auntie. My name is Billy Olds. I'm located in the woods and forests of northern Wisconsin, where I live without having to see another human being, which is amazing. Awesome. And as Caleb said, I'm really getting into the travel groove. So I just came back from doing a 2.5-week-long residency trip in Mexico. I'm home for 3 weeks. And then my best friend and I, Christy's one of the coaches on my team, are actually going to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands for 2.5 weeks. I'm going to be 50 in July. So that's my gift to myself, is to go to a couple of the places that I've always wanted. And that is pretty close to the top of the list, because none of my friends would go to Antarctica with me. So if you're in the audience and you want to go to Antarctica, hit me up later.
Billy and I were talking about maybe doing a Sovereign CEO Antarctica trip for 2025, which would be...
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Dude, so that would be next summer 2025, because we'll be in Paraguay anyway. We just pop down Argentina and then, right? That's so it. If you guys have any desire, start thinking about this. I'm serious about this. She mentioned that. I went, because that's on my list for a long time. I can't do it this year, but we could definitely do it next summer, 2000. So if you want to come to Argentina, well, it'll be Argentina too.
Yeah.
Antarctica by way of Argentina, 2025. You got a year and a half to figure out logistics and costs and all that stuff. How many people on earth can say they visited Antarctica? Dude. Makes me think of the movie The Thing.
Caleb and their business auntie. Like, oh my God.
With both of us.
That's going to be special.
And I was telling her the other day that, we might have a bigger group than we think for that kind of thing. Cause like, we'll get, 4, 5, 6 guys. Dude, we can have like 20, 30 people. Women too. I mean, shit, we could have, you never know what these things.
So with that, that's a really good segue. Because I noticed one of the first questions is Billy Alpha Female 2.0? This is where it's going to get interesting, and we're not going to go on a too long a tangent on this one, but we can talk about it another time on the alpha side. The answer to that is that I laugh at the concept of alpha male. It's hilarious because in the natural world that doesn't exist. Am I an alpha female? Absolutely. Does that mean the same thing to me as it does to Caleb? Absolutely not. All I think when we talk about dating together is unclean, gross. So our perspectives are really different, but we're like siblings, and we rib each other about the differences rather than finding it problematic. And that's the key to, I think, all of our success. We don't see anything through the exact same lens, and we like to debate and come out of those conversations with better ideas. So I am an AF 2.0 in my own way.
You're definitely an alpha. I always remember when, this is years ago now, a long time ago, where you went on a date with a guy and he said, without you saying anything, he said, wow, you're an alpha female. And you said, well, by the way, I actually work for a company called.
It is kind of a running joke with my friends. We all think it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
But the reality is I care a lot about freedom of lifestyle, whatever that means to you. I don't have to agree with all of the details. Doesn't matter. What I want for you in the audience, for Caleb, for myself, because I am a selfish cow, as you will hear me say time and again, is that you get to design the lifestyle that works for you, which means the business or the work that works for you. And I'm not as black and white as Caleb is. Like, you have to work for yourself. You have to do this. Do I think it's great to do that? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I'll encourage you until I'm blue in the face. But we understand not one size fits all. So that's in general my approach.
Billy's a lot nicer than me.
Yeah, usually. Not always. Sometimes I can be a bad
Not always. No, I didn't say always, but usually.
Usually.
Yeah.
Let's see. Felix asked a really interesting question and asked if I could go back, would I have worked multiple jobs to get my business going like I did and played it safer, or would I have tried to start my business on credit cards and taken a little more risk? Um, it really kind of depends on how far back you want to go. But my answer is always going to be the same. Don't take debt if you don't need to. Don't put yourself in a losing position unless you really have to. And unless you have the means to dig yourself out of that financial hole that you're creating by in doing so. Um, so my best advice would be actually to live within your means, whether that's lifestyle, business, all of the above. Live within your means and you'll be much happier. And just increase your means. And he said to avoid the drag of working fast food. So I worked fast food for like 3 or 4 months about 13 years ago. We have a whole podcast where we talk about it.
Really? Where'd you work?
Yeah, Arby's. I worked at Arby's for a few months.
It's so
It was
funny.
after I broke my back and I had a stable full of horses and an expensive property and all of this nonsense going on. You can go back and watch the podcast if you want the whole story. But the bottom line is that I lost my business by trying too hard to hold on to it. And if I were smarter, I would have just sold the assets. But because those assets were living creatures with whom I had relationships, I emotionally wasn't able to do that and made really fucking dumb financial decisions coming from a completely emotional place. So I would not encourage anyone to be that emotional and to be that tied to your business. Find ways that you can take a step back that's healthy and safe. That I did not do. And I didn't create for myself a safety net because I was living at the top of my means. And I created a bad situation for myself. And one of the ways I got the show moving again after getting out of depression and healing from an injury was working at a friend of mine was a manager at a fast food restaurant. So I worked there for a few months. And it was humiliating at first. That is how I internalized it. It was absolutely the worst possible thing that could happen because even as a high school kid, I did not work in fast food or a restaurant of any kind. So it felt really freaking horrible and traumatic at the time. But what, looking back now from this lens of many years in the future, is I learned how to create a franchise. I started to understand from the inside how franchise models worked. So I choose to frame that as, I took materials, I paid attention to how things were done and treated it more like a puzzle to understand the business than it was working a job. And it was a short-term thing that met a need that I had. And I'm not sad I did it, but just create a safety net for yourself. Don't be stupid. I think that's the bottom line.
Agree.
Let's see. Oh, Nick just had an interesting question. What major opportunities are you seeing in Paraguay?
Yeah, so really quick, Billy is more tied into Paraguay now than I am, even though I've been going there longer because I'm just a hermit when I go. So Billy is tied into all kinds of companies and associations and people down there. So she can give you better information about Paraguay now than I can in many respects. So go ahead.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but I have made a little bit more of an effort to network and to create opportunities. So, but I'm big on that. If I'm going to travel, I'm going to make the most out of it. I think a lot of what I'm seeing in Paraguay, first of all, I was so surprised that it was not the third world hellhole I thought I was going into. I was really not stoked to go to Paraguay for the first time. There was nothing about it that was appealing to me. And after about, 2 hours on the ground there, everything changed and I fell in love with it. The first opportunity I see is if you are involved in anything that it requires a high amount of energy usage. So if you're a crypto miner, go to Paraguay. The energy is electricity is incredibly cheap, and the whole country is hydropowered by the dams. In fact, that's really their only exploitable resource is water. But because it's abundant in that region, nobody is really exploiting it. So for me, that makes it a really good idea for a hideaway, as your get out of Dodge location. I love that nobody's really going to care about Paraguay in the long run. It doesn't have exploitable resources except for water, and a tough agricultural region where you can grow cattle and a few other crops. It's not on. It has no seafront, no oceanfront property at all. So from a defensive standpoint, it's really safe. Nobody's going to take over Paraguay when they can take over the Argentinian and Brazilian coastlines, for example.
Right.
So I think some of the opportunities there are definitely with the growing technology sector, and I'll be interested in learning more about that on the next visit. On our first visit last year, we went to the Paraguayan National Expo, which is sort of their business and agricultural exposition. So if you're from the US, it's like a state fair, but for the entire country. And they have like a 4-day business conference tied to it. So next year, I'm hoping to go to that and learn a lot more about what the up and coming technologies are, what the growing spaces are. But for right now, I think the biggest opportunities are, like you said, if you do something that requires a lot of electrical load or something that requires labor, because labor there is incredibly cheap. Incredibly cheap.
Yes. Oh my God.
In fact, when I ordered my first Uber Eats meal in Mexico, I was astonished. I was like, oh my God, how did I spend that much in Paraguay? I never came close to spending that much. It was shocking even to see the disparity between the cost of goods and services in Mexico and Paraguay. Because down there, we can live like royalty in the finest neighborhoods, eat at literally the finest restaurants in the country, and it costs about the same as going to Red Lobster or Olive
or
Garden,
less.
those gross restaurants at home.
Well, we had that one dinner where we had like 12, 13 people in like one of the finest restaurants in the entire country. So it was like 12, 13
No,
of
there
us.
were like 18 of us.
Well, I'm talking about that too. But I'm talking about the one before that, the year prior.
Yeah.
Or the few months prior, the first time we did it at the mall, near the mall.
Yeah, yes. There were 15 of us in that group.
Okay, 15. And they all had like steak and meat and they were drinking alcohol and the whole bill was like $220 US.
Yeah. It's
your birthday party was a little more expensive, I think. It was more than $200.
But we had more people and they drank
more people and more drinks. Yeah.
It was a party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had Wagyu steak that night, which isn't something I would buy at home because a $400 steak is just, I might give somebody that for a gift, but I would not buy it for myself. But down in Paraguay, it's like $50 or $40. So just go for it.
It's so fucking cheap. Love it.
Yep. It is. And what's really cool too is that there are pockets that I didn't expect of Mennonites, which are kind of like Amish people that live with reduced technology. Yes, they came over in the interwar period from Canada, the US, Germany, from multiple countries.
Are they in Asuncion or are they outside the city?
They're outside of the city. There are also German enclaves, which I think many of us knew about.
They're Korean enclaves.
Korean enclaves. There are also a growing expat community from the Ukraine. So it's a pretty cool melting pot. The expat scene down there is pretty cool. It's still pretty unknown, and it's far enough out of the way that it's not on most people's radar. So I think that we're going to see a lot of opportunity in Paraguay.
So if you are interested in Paraguay, you can sign up. You could get residency anytime you want through our services, or you can join us in July. Both those is at www.caleb.top/go. And you have to put the www in there. I'm going to fix that eventually, but we should move a little faster with the answers to questions because the questions started piling up. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's see.
Smithsonian's black.
Hold on, I'm not. So here's a good one. Is Caleb really as productive as he claims? Mostly.
No, I sit around all day.
Same here. We're both super unproductive. Even if you're not in Sovereign CEO anything, you can come on the residency trips. In fact, we're also going to add a get to know feature to the trip. So if you're not ready to get residency and make that big a commitment, you can come down for a week, hang out with myself and the rest of the group who's in that country, get to know it, no commitment, and then decide if you'd like to do it on your own or if you'd like to come back with us at a later date. You don't have to be in any of our other programs. We don't discriminate like that.
We're also going to do masterminds. We also do masterminds. We're down there. Billy and I are both in the mastermind, and you can do that without getting residency. You can get that separately. So we have masterminds, get to know, and residency. We have all three of those things down there at this, usually around the same time.
Yeah. D says he's been told that the environment is changing so rapidly. There's a narrow window to visit Antarctica. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That's why we need to lock it in next year at the latest. Abso-fucking-lutely not one of Caleb FB's. Caleb and I are completely the opposite of one another's types. I don't like old dudes. He doesn't like fat chicks, so it's golden. We are not each other's tastes in any way. Let's see. Miguel,
you're skipping some questions.
What did I miss?
Okay, hang on.
There we go.
I'll
The
do it.
target customers.
Well, no, before that. How do you retire, sell, or close a company when you're finished with it? This is for you and me, but I'll let you answer.
So I'm going to say it depends on what the business is and what you're doing. I have one business that is a franchise model that does alcohol flavored cotton candy. So that one I just kind of put on the shelf because I don't feel like doing it anymore. But I can pick it up and have my people in the field take on gigs whenever I want. So that one I just kind of put on the shelf. If leads come in and people ask for the service, we'll provide it, but we just don't do any advertising. And that's how I shelf things, essentially. If I want to sell a business, and that is, by the way, I don't close businesses. I either sell them or
you really don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a reason to. You only close a business if it's not making money and there's no reason to have it. And I haven't run into that in the last 15 or 20 years, so I bother.
My quick answer, because you asked for me too, is that it depends on if it's a Model A business or Model B business. So Model A is you are the personality of the business. Like this business here, I'm the business. I'm the face of this. If I died, could this business go on? Kind of, but it would be very weird and different. So if you're the face of the business, it's harder to sell. You just retire from the business or not. If it's a Model B business like Amazon and no one cares who the owner is, then yes, you can sell it or retire on it or do whatever you want with it. So it depends on what kind of business structure. That's a decision you make at the very beginning. It's a Model A business and a Model B. There's pros and cons to both. The pros of Model A is you're going to make a lot of money really fast. That's going to be Model A. The downside of Model A is it's not really an asset, or not really as much of an asset. Exactly. It's the opposite for Model B. Model B is it's an asset you can like retire on or sell someday for bazillions of dollars or whatever. If you do it right, most people don't. But it takes a long time to ramp up to high income because you make money, you have to put it back in the company to scale. That's
in a nutshell. I'd agree with Caleb. And the most important thing we can do, in my opinion, is operationalize a business as soon as possible, get standard operating procedures in place, have an operations manual that can be handed off, because that is one of the most critical deliverables that you can hand off to a new owner, and it makes your business much more valuable.
Absolutely. Question above, is your method for choosing niche very different from Caleb? Do you just see a profitable segment and just go after it?
I've never had to use a method for finding a niche. I just kind of know how to do this. I cannot explain it to you. This is like one of those innate abilities, and it's one of the few that I have, but I can see opportunities flying at me from every direction. I cannot leave my house or turn on a TV program without seeing some opportunity. So I had to learn how to teach people to do it because
you did.
Have to go through that process.
Yeah, Billy had that naturally. Sometimes you have skills you have to develop, and sometimes you have skills naturally because that's how you're born. And Billy just has that. Matter of fact, she probably has it better than I do. So yeah, and that's why when we do niche selection in 9-Day Business Builder, which is like a 4 to 6 week process, she's usually involved intimately in that because she's better at that than I am. So yes.
Yeah, but Caleb, you're better at being more concise. So I think it's the balancing act between us. I can be a little too friendly and Caleb can get in there and say, knock it off, let's move on this. So the balance is very good.
Yep.
Let's see.
So your next one is from Miguel, Italy. It says, if I get residency plus cedula, you see that one? That's your next one. And then from then on, just go down.
Let me find that one.
If you lost track, I can read it to you.
There we go.
If it's it.
You can work for companies and make the invoice to them in your Paraguayan company. Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely what you would do. Bill
So
through
wait,
your Paraguayan.
let me read the question.
Oh,
That's okay. So if he's asking, if I get residency plus cedula plus Paraguay tax number, can I work for European companies, normally European customers, normally companies, and make the invoices to, sorry, I can't read, and make the invoices to them with my Paraguayan tax number? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, you can. And the next question was, will I pay zero taxes on those invoices? To have the zero taxes, should I live in Paraguay for a maximum of months per year, or can I live all the year in Paraguay? That is where we would need to bring in our tax expert. I am not a tax expert. I would not want to give you poor information, but the best of my understanding is that yes, as long as you are not living in the country, you do not pay taxes on anything invoiced through your Paraguayan company. Once you start living in Paraguay and actually residing there, that does change, but I'm not sure at what point that change happens.
I believe. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say the other thing to keep in mind is that there are reciprocal agreements all across the globe that are constantly changing. So what I tell you today might be correct today and not tomorrow.
If you have a Paraguayan corporation and you receive funds from that Paraguayan corporation and you're in the country, I don't quote me on this. Billy's right. That's a tax question. I believe the deciding number of Paraguay is 9 months a year. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the magic number. So if you're under 9 months a year and the income is coming from outside the borders of Paraguay, you pay zero tax. Now, certainly those of you who just would move to Paraguay or spend 6 months a year there, that's what I do. And 100%, there's no corporate structure in the country that generates income. It's all coming from outside the country. Absolutely, you pay zero. That's why Paraguay is my second home from Dubai. I pay zero taxes there because I don't earn money from inside the country yet. And even if you did, you'd only pay that tax, and it's pretty low taxes, one of the lowest tax countries in South America. You'd only pay that tax on the income that comes from inside the country if you're there for most of the year.
Exactly that. Let's see. Miguel had a follow-up question asking if with the cedula he can live in the other countries in South America without paying taxes. I have absolutely no idea about that, I'm afraid. No. I don't know what the reciprocal agreements are. I don't know anything about Central America. I only know Mexico is the only thing I know about in Central America. The rest of my knowledge is in deep South America.
So it depends. It doesn't matter what ID you have. It matters where you are. So if you have your cedula and you're in a Mercosur country, and I don't even know if Colombia is Mercosur. I think it is. If you're in Colombia and certainly Mexico, more than 6 months a year, they're going to charge you tax. They don't care what your ID is. It's where you are. So the answer is no. Now, the good news about cedula, which I'm super excited about, I'm going to do this when I go to Paraguay next time because I'll be there for a long time. You can take that cedula and you can walk into any Mercosur country you want. Drive, walk, sometimes fly, depends. And you don't need a passport. They just let you in. So when you have a cedula, you can go to Brazil, you can go to Argentina, you can go to Uruguay. You just walk, you just flash your Mercosur, or not Mercosur, your cedula, and you're in. And I don't know what the laws are for how long you can stay there. That's based on the country.
The next question was asking if electricity access is stable. In my experience in Paraguay, in last year, I was there for a total of about 6 weeks. We didn't have any electric outages whatsoever. Just no disruptions, nothing. Caleb, have you experienced any outages down there?
Yes, but only when there's a horrible storm. So if there's a horrible storm, you may have problems. If there's not a storm, I've never had a problem in my life. I have more problems with the electricity and the internet in Armenia than I do in Paraguay.
Interesting.
So interestingly. So no, the infrastructure, if you stay in the nicer areas, which is where you'd stay as a Western, Villa Mora, if you stay in that area, the electricity and the internet's fast, electricity's great. The only time I've had trouble, matter of fact, if you remember, Billy, I had one when you were on a live stream. I left you hanging.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that? That was a big fucking lightning because we go in the summer, which is their winter. So there's a big, horrible windstorm or lightning. Yeah. Outside of that, never had a problem.
Nice. So Z Watcher asks, do you prefer living in the woods or the cities with technology? Cities seem more beneficial for running businesses due to more easy access to everything. Sure, cities are often easier. Do I like them? Fuck no. I feel claustrophobic in a city most of the time. I will avoid them um, in most situations. I just don't feel good in a city. Now, that being said, where I live in the country can be a real pain in the butt because it's a very isolated, very, very rural area. Um, I live about 4 miles from the nearest village of 400 people. And I live about 45 minutes from the nearest, I call it the big town, which is about 150,000. So can that be inconvenient? Sure, for sure. There are days where I can't, even with a all-wheel drive vehicle, that if the snowplow doesn't come through, I'm not leaving my house for a day or two. That realistically does happen. I do need to have backup internet, which is a pain in the ass, but it's no different than living, in the remote part of a Peruvian jungle. But it just happens to be in Wisconsin. I think what really depends is what you need and what you want out of life. What I want out of life is peace, quiet, hanging out with my dog, seeing wildlife, hanging out with trees, not hearing or smelling people unless I want to, not having to interact with people unless I make a choice to do so. So to me, that's really valuable. But when I'm in a city, when I have to travel like to Asuncion, which is a capital city, I'm grateful because it's a very green space. It's very welcoming. It's not as claustrophobic as many other cities. I think the only real thing that I miss out on living where I live is ease of access to an airport, because the nearest major airports are about 3.5 and 4 hours away from me, Chicago and Minneapolis. And I cannot get food delivered to my house. So there is no calling DoorDash. That just doesn't exist here. But I don't think that's a really bad thing.
Hey, man, it helps your weight. Being in Dubai where everything is delivered within like 5 minutes, dude, try being on a diet here.
But it's so much easier to eat healthfully when somebody else makes fancy things with many ingredients that I wouldn't have.
That's true too. That's true too. That's what Ollie and our client base is. That's his argument, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Dee asked, Caleb, Sovereign CEO, didn't you say Billy works with making videos for people? Curious as to if she has seen many successful artist Sovereign CEOs.
You didn't hear me correctly because I never said that. Do you have an idea what he's referring to or no?
No, I'm not really sure, I'm afraid.
No, she does not do that. So that is incorrect.
What I do actually is similar to what Caleb does, except I add the implementation on. So rather than just coaching or consulting, I go in and change the way businesses actually work. That's really just the difference between us, is that I have a staff who jumps into businesses with me, and we've essentially just run a takeover. Change the way everything works,
your company around
it, and change the ethos.
Right.
Let's see. Can you find enough people who speak English in Paraguay to scale an e-business that requires medium English proficiency? The answer to that is absolutely. Expats. There are expats, there are native speakers, and if you are willing to invest a little bit of time and energy in providing tools for them to help with language and diction, people will jump at the opportunities. Because again, labor there is very inexpensive. There aren't a lot of opportunities like this. So if you can create it, and create something where you accept the people in as part of your team rather than treating them like they're just servants, I think you'd be amazed at what you can develop down there, or in any country. It doesn't matter what the predominant language is. If you need specific linguistic skills and you're able to invest even 30 days in helping people with diction and idioms, it will go a tremendous way for you.
So yeah, motivated workforce down there, because there's people who want to work and they have nothing to do and they can't find, because of the nature of the economy. But to be fair, very few people as a percentage speak fluent English. They're out there, but it's not, when you're just walking around, random people, they don't speak English. You go to a mall or things, they're not going to speak English. Just be aware of that.
The beauty of that is that we're location independent, boys and girls. Why would they need medium English proficiency and to be in Paraguay
That
to
was
work
my
in your
question,
business?
right? You don't need it. You don't need to hire local people. You
No.
don't need to do it.
You
Yeah.
hire the local people to do the things that only locals can do, which would be like your
Right.
shopping, your
Right.
cleaning, your laundry,
Exactly.
food delivery. Yeah, that's if they don't have the skills you need, just use the internet.
Right.
So Felix wants to know if we're going to have a picking up chicks visit to Colombia. Maybe someday. Maybe someday. We'll talk about it.
I have several ideas.
Scoreboard.
This is the
saying.
wrong time and place to discuss that, but we have ideas. You skip one from right above Phoenix, so it says Gilgamesh. See that one?
No, I don't. Let me scroll back up.
All right.
Can I get tax residency in Paraguay but live in Brazil most of the time? Yes. Again, there are a number of days that you need to be in specific countries before you are taxed. Yep. I cannot give you that legal or tax advice, but yes, it is possible to structure that. Talk to a professional locally to get the full details.
There are people who do things like that in Brazil and Argentina. They have a corporation in Paraguay. They go, you're in Brazil, so you just go through Ciudad del Este. You just walk right through you literally walk across the border. They don't care. So, but you need some slightly more specific information on how much time you can spend in Brazil, which I don't have.
Okay, Nick asks, in the initial phases of structuring or designing a new business, what principles do you adhere to so that the business is as outsourceable as possible in the future? So the first thing I think about is every single person I hire, doesn't matter what the role is, doesn't matter how big or small, what education that person needs. The very first thing I do with every candidate is set them up to take over my role. That is my goal for every single person I hire. One of these people is going to rise like Squid Games. It will rise and take all, right? But the only way I can structure that where people have the opportunity to rise, to be given a voice, rather than being dictated to. So that's number one. Number two is that we document everything. If you are doing a new task for the first time, you document it. We use Scribe, which is a screen capture tool that will let you annotate and create a printed standard operating procedure. Or we use Loom, which is a screen capture tool. So again, we can go through a task, describe it, but what we then create is this huge compendium of knowledge that we can hand off. So with every new person that comes into the business, I can delegate, task A, B, and C because I already know how to do them. I documented it. Now I can hand the task off to them. And they're going to test my work, test my SOP to make sure it works when they do the task. And if it doesn't work, then we have to change something, right? So by doing that with every task in a granular way from the very, very start, we can create an operations manual that keeps the entire company moving without putting a great deal of effort into it, or without having to go back and sort of reverse engineer everything and then engineer it going forward again. So my two best pieces of advice: hire people that you believe can replace you, even if they're just in the mailroom. It's the attitude and the willingness to try and learn new things and to take action. Those are the two things we're looking for. Yep. And the second is create those processes and procedures from the outset with everything. It seems tedious, and I have lots of people say, we're not planning on doing that till we're in business for 2 years or until we make $4 million a year. And that's the dumbest thing you could ever say to me.
I know you're referring to it too.
Yep, I know you do. It drives me insane. But the reality is, get it done. Get it done as soon as possible and with as many tasks as possible, because you are not going to be making that Gmail account for every new employee. You want someone else to do it, so document it so they can. And then they'll never have pause. They'll never have to wait for you to teach them. They can just do it themselves. And that's what we want.
If you could go a little faster answering the questions.
I'm sorry. I'm new at this.
Okay. And I bet some people in the comments will say, shut up, let her talk. But that's just me being me. You're good.
Thanks. Let's see. The next question is, what are the best techniques for asking people and companies in your niche what their biggest problem is? Never, ever, ever, in my opinion, say, what's your biggest problem? Right? What I ask people are, what As a business owner, what surprises you that it takes so much of your time? Where do you feel that you're wasting time? Where do you feel that your staff is wasting time? What do you hate doing? That's the most telling. What do you hate? What do you procrastinate? Those are the answers to what the problems are. But if I say, what is your problem? Especially if I don't know you and have a strong relationship, you're going to bristle. I don't have problems, right? I'm going to want to feel out, try to understand why you're asking me that, how much information I can give
That
you or
happens
what to
too.
give you.
Yeah.
So remove that idea of defensiveness. Don't say, what is your problem? What are your problems? Say, what costs you more? What takes up too much of your time? Just look at reframing a little bit.
Good answer. That's great.
Let's see. Okay, so we're talking about Colombia.
They're all talking about the Colombia. They got very excited about the Colombia thing. Go down to
guys. We'll make something like that happen, especially knowing that you're interested. Auntie Billy loves planning events, so okay.
Yeah, go down to space. Go down to space time.
Space time. Considering how many businesses I'm involved with, how do we decide where and how to spend my time? Okay, this is another very untraditional answer. Is I follow the dopamine. So as a person with ADHD and who is on the Asperger's or has Asperger's and is on the autism spectrum, I cannot fucking stand doing repetitive work. I really need to be learning new things. So what I do is I look for the opportunities to learn or to do something different or to improve something. And I will then hop from sort of business to business, looking for those, either because the staff has told me this is where an opportunity is, or this is where we're having some sort of a barrier or roadblock that's come into play that we need removed. But really my job is following the dopamine. What interests me and what can I apply to my business? How can I make this better? So I treat my work very much like being paid to put a series of puzzles together, but they're in a puzzle book where I can flip the pages, if that makes sense.
Now, let me add something to that because some of you are going to get the wrong idea. Billy is very productive, which is what I was talking about a minute ago. So Billy can execute. Billy doesn't just sit around and think about stuff and talk about stuff like a lot of you do. So Billy, with her ability to execute and manage her time and be productive, has the freedom to follow her dopamine. Whereas if you're just a normalistic guy and you follow your dopamine, you're never going to you're going to play video games and listen to podcasts and go, that's a really cool idea, and read books, never do anything. So just be aware of that. It's a combination of those two things.
And for me, following the dopamine often means being involved with the business builder, right? I don't really give two fucks about Facebook, popular culture, who sang or who wore what outfit. What I care about are what things that are happening in real life and in the lives around me. So my dopamine hit comes literally from answering questions in the business builder. I just frame things that way, and it keeps me really interested.
Mm-hmm.
I missed a couple again, it looks like.
I can read them if you're
yeah, why don't you? I'm going to take a sip.
All right, go ahead. I'll go ahead. What are your visitors? That makes no question. That makes no sense. What is your business model? Do you teach what is your business model? Do you teach organic marketing? Which you don't.
Yes.
But.
Well, we do. But I partner with other people that have greater strength in it than I do. So to that end, my company is called Boss Cooperative. It's the one I'm most active in, I'd say. That's client facing. And we do events, much like Caleb does. We do events, masterminds, things like that. Let's see, we did a summer camp last year. I don't think we'll do it this year, but we'll do it the next year. I do a lot of coaching consulting, but rather than just doing the coaching consulting from a high level, I will jump into like between 2 and 4 companies a year and do a deep dive, sort of taking over and reworking their operations. That is the most exciting thing to me, I guess. Let's see. We do in Boss Cooperative, we do have a team of coaches. We are going to soon be announcing that we are actually taking over Caleb's Founders Sanctum, which is the monthly membership for business owners. So that will be starting at the beginning of next month. We do one-on-one coaching, and we're developing some courses and programs of our own as well. So we do lots of different things.
And Billy and I are going over there, or we will this week actually, the events for this year. We're going to have some Caleb events, Billy events, and Billy and Caleb events.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have Boss Cooperative events, Sovereign CEO events. I just finished finally this weekend, finished my calendar. So now you and I can talk about that. But
I'm so excited about that, because the one that's on the top of my list is, I think, August. We had some dates in August that we could do things together in the US. And I propose live on air, guys, hold them to this, that we go cage diving with sharks in Jupiter, Florida.
Oh, I'd do that.
I know you
would. I would do that.
We've talked about it before.
Okay, good. I like that. Totally.
I think rather than doing summer camp, it's going to be cage diving. Or you can
You're organizing it, not me.
Exactly. I just look too much like a seal in the water, like nice and blubbery and tasty. So I'm not going to dive without a cage. But to each of you, do what you like. Let's see. Red flags in business operations where I intervene immediately. Anytime somebody thinks that they are a dictator in a business rather than a listener and a contributor, they have no place to work with me. None. I put up with none of that shit. Egos have no place in the business world. And of course, we all have them, but we cannot lead from a place of ego. I certainly don't. I lead from a place of humility. And that is really what I expect from the people that I surround myself with. The other thing is, most businesses have really poor internal communication. They might be fairly good at external comms, but what they're doing for internal communications is using maybe Slack and email and telephones and all of these ridiculous technologies to waste a lot of time. I hate meetings unless we need them. So if I see a company that has lots of meetings or they're segmenting responsibilities, in fact, I just fired a client. You don't know about this one. I fired that client I took on before I even really started working, when I realized that he was not giving clarity to his staff. Meaning, like, he intentionally kept numbers from his staff. He wouldn't let them see proposals, things of this nature.
What the hell?
And for me, that was a huge red flag. Yeah. And it made me say, I don't want to play with you. Sorry, bad decision. Bye now. And you see them as they come along. If something feels not right in your gut, there's a reason for that, and you probably should explore it. Oh, this is a good one for you, Caleb. John, I don't know how to pronounce your name, sir, but he says, Caleb, why do you say we should market our business in major cities like New York, London, etc., mostly Western metropolises? But if the West is collapsing, won't our businesses fail when it does collapse?
That's correct. So we're talking about short-term versus medium and long-term. I want you to get free as quickly as possible. And that means you go where the money is now. And unfortunately, the money is in many Western cities, although there are many very wealthy cities like Dubai that don't live in the West. So I want you to start your location-dependent business, get your first few customers, like in Business Builder, and then be able to quit your job as soon as possible. Now, long-term, and I've said this many times, I don't say this every day though, but I've said it a lot. My long-term objective is to make sure that 60%, to your point, which is valid, 60% of my income from all my income streams and all my, everything I'm doing, everything cannot come. This is my personal goal now. This, you don't do whatever you want. This is not Sovereign CEO or alpha stuff. This is just Caleb's opinion. 60% of my total income long-term, not yet, long-term, cannot come from the collapsing trifecta, United States, Canada, or Europe. So I only want United States, Canada, Europe to represent a grand total of 40% of my total income. So when and if these countries go down, I lose a little money, but I'm okay. So long-term, you can shift. Way you can do it is, you can think about it this way. Have a business, sell to people in London or New York or wherever, get your models down, get your SOPs down like Billy talks about, get your system down, then just duplicate that over to a non-Western city or region. And now you're good. But it's easier to start in the West because that's where the money is and that's where people are comfortable buying.
Agreed. And as English speakers ourselves on the podcast and as listeners, it's much easier to work in your home language. Right, so do that first, learn the process, and then you can replicate it in any other country.
Right. I want you to get from zero to freedom as fast as you can. And it's going to take you longer if you say, I'm only going to work in Bolivia. That's going to take longer. So that's why.
Let's see. Next question. Do I share the same view with Caleb that school and college is a scam and bullshit? And what sort of skills have I learned? Let's see. I agree with Caleb that for me personally, especially as a woman with ADHD, I was bored to tears in school. I was checked out. Once I got to middle school, I felt like I didn't learn anything after that point, realistically. There were things I could just learn myself or learn by doing. Like, I was heavily involved in junior achievement in high school, and I taught business basics to different elementary school kids. So my friend and I would dress up in our little suits and take the city bus because we were too young to drive and go to different elementary schools for a few days and teach the kids basic business principles. I was just really interested in that. So it was easy for me. And again, that was me following the dopamine. This is easy for me. I enjoy learning about it. This is a series of puzzles that I enjoy putting together. The rest of school bored the crap out of me. I didn't perform. I don't know why they graduated me, if I'm honest. They shouldn't have. I think my GPA was probably around a 2.0 or lower because I literally just didn't even go to class, especially junior and senior year. Now, was that smart? Do I wish I had done something differently? Of course I do. But even taking advanced placement classes, I was very underwhelmed. I think there's a lot to be said about apprenticeship programs and similar, whether that gets you into a factory environment, an agricultural environment, or a business environment. It doesn't matter. I think for me, hands-on learning is the only way to learn because books will simply put me to sleep. And if you lecture me, I will fall asleep even faster. But there are people, I have friends that really need to learn in that very structured way and who excel at it. So I think it depends on who you are as an individual, what you want to get out of it, and how important you think those 2 extra years of credits that are bullshit mean to you. Because we all know we have to do at least 2 more years of general education before you get into any decent subject matter. And I think that's a really tremendous shame.
Don't go to college. Stupid. Let you want to be a doctor.
Go to tech school. I mean, if you feel you need to do something, go to a 2-year program. I think in many cases, it's more valuable because you're getting into the meat of the heart of the matter. You're not just working around the periphery and talking about ideas. It's important to learn how to think, but unless you are going to be a philosopher, I don't think you need the extra couple of years of just basic general education that's going to cost $50,000 or $80,000.
Don't go to college.
No, I kind of feel the same. Yeah, don't. Unless it's something that means something to you, why?
No.
Most jobs that want to tell you you need a degree are fucking dumb. They are dumb. They are wrong.
Don't get a job. Start your own business.
Exactly. It's hard to get. Caleb and I can both talk to until we're blue in the face about this. Hard to get a job, but once you get in your foot in your door, they say, oh my God, you can do that, you can do this, you can do this, and you rise up those company ranks incredibly quickly on merit of what you can do. Let's see. Speaking of Facebook, wondering how you feel about the need for social media for successful business-to-consumer sovereign CEOs. I've thought about hosting video on my site and skipping Instagram and YouTube because of the algorithm. I don't have an opinion there, and the reason for that is that all of my clients come to me from I don't know where. I literally have no idea. Caleb found me on accident, as do most people. I do not advertise. I do not really have a functional website. So I am a terrible person to ask about that because people just magically come to me.
Billy is good at networking, at being around lots of people, being around smart people, being around people who know what they're doing, being around capable people. She's really good at picking out talent and seeing who's good and who's not. And so she puts herself in an environment naturally. She doesn't try to do this, where people find her. And it's a skill set, and it's a skill I don't really have. I tried networking like years ago and said, oh, fuck this. So she's better at this. So that's.
And I feel like I'm not good at it either because I don't go to networking events. I have a hard time talking to strangers.
You don't do it the traditional way. You don't go to like, Lead Tip or whatever and network. You don't do that. You do it naturally.
So it's one of those things I can't describe. But Nick then follows up and asks, what are the top metrics for evaluating contractors' performance? Couple of things. The first thing is that I let them know from the outset I want and need them to be my thought partner. I am not just going to be relegating them to a specific role, because especially with a young business or a growing business, the roles and responsibilities are always going to be changing. We're always going to be adding new staff members. So I want people to know they have that opportunity. When the opportunity is given to them, what I look for is who says yes and who says no. If I say, hey, we need to do this new thing, we have no idea how to do, will you take this on?
Right.
The answer had damn well better be yes. I have a few ideas. I'll get rolling on this and report back to you. Not, well, I could, but what do I do? Or that's not my job. If anyone who works with me ever says something along the lines of that's not my job, they're gone. Instantly gone.
You cannot have that attitude in a small company. That is not possible.
You cannot have that attitude in any company, in my mind. I want people, again, they have to be able to replace me. And I want each person to grow as much in the company as possible. So if they demonstrate to me that they're able to learn new skills and take action, even if they're not certain, I'm really happy with that. The biggest red flags are people not getting work done on time. And it's often not about poor time management. It's because they're afraid to get started or they're afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that is the worst attitude a person can have. I would rather you make 5 mistakes and give me the different options for the outcomes than to sit on your hands. We're going to skip the question about porn because, like, with OnlyFans, whatever, good luck.
Well, I mentioned, I don't think he's referring to this. I think he's being a smartass, but I mentioned in the past that guys like you and you get hit on a lot, especially at events. So you're popular.
It's surprising to me.
It's not surprising to me.
I find it trying to think of the term that I used once. I pull far above my weight.
She does. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you're pretty impressive. And you don't have to work very hard at it either.
No. This is what you see is what you get. This is it 24/7. Let's see. I do have some of the attributes for that area possibly, but no. My natural life area is money, like Caleb's. What tools do I use to track performance? You know what I actually love is Basecamp, Asana, Rike, Monday, any project management tool that lets you see the outputs of your team. I don't really care about, what people said in meetings or, Bobby wasn't very nice to Susie on Tuesday night. I just can't be bothered with that. But what I do love are having the metrics on the back end of my project management tool. So I can see when things are assigned. I can see what people's workload is like. I can see what they're able to get through and how thorough they are. So to me, that is the key. Performance metrics come from looking at a project management tool in terms of whether they let themselves run into barriers and roadblocks or if they move them for themselves. And I can also see the throughput.
I was going to say the only reason that I use Basecamp is because of Billy. So when Billy first came on working with me, she said, you will use Basecamp. And unlike a lot of people she works with, I said, okay, it makes me money. Let's do it. And so now I'm a Basecamp acolyte because of Billy.
It is. We remove so many meetings. And that's the other thing. Meetings are great for the people in them. They're terrible for your bottom line. And they don't track the outcomes from those conversations.
Yes,
so
that's right.
Putting everything into our project management solves for that. And then everything is centralized.
By the way, 90-Day Business Builder, you get access to Basecamp for free as part of the program forever. You get your own little Basecamp piece. So 90daybizbuilder.com, we have a business builder set aside just for a Basecamp installation just for Business Builder. And once you're in there, you have access to it for the rest of your life as a tool.
And all the other members of Business Builder, which is a pretty cool community.
Correct. So you have that for the rest of your life. When you sign for Business Builder, you have access to that the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And Basecamp ain't cheap. You get it for free.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty sweet. No, I don't have an email list. I do not do any advertising or marketing for myself whatsoever at all. And I haven't ever.
That's not her thing.
Yeah, no, just
That's
don't
why we're
need
not
to.
very different. That's where we're opposites, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't do the character thing that Caleb does and be the leading face. I've always been really happy being like the magician behind the curtain who just, pulls out the levers and makes all the magic happen. How many hours a day do I work? I don't know. It just depends. Like today I worked 3 hours. Sunday I worked like 14 hours.
You did yesterday?
Yeah. Well, I got hyper fixated on something I was working on, so I just kept going without realizing.
Follow the serotonin again.
Yeah, serotonin and dopamine all the way.
Yeah.
I live my life so it doesn't matter really how many hours I put in. It matters the outputs that I generate.
Right.
So I don't have to spend a lot of time working because I have other people doing things and they're well directed and they're self-directed because those are the people I want to surround myself with. So
Billy has very high time ROI, which is what we were talking about before she came on. She has extremely high, in some respects, higher than mine, because she has more leverage. And that was actually one of the things we were going to get to. But yeah, that's why she's able to work 3 hours on a day and she's fine. Right.
Yep. My biggest concern in life is I'll be 50 this summer. It's having fun. And I think that's been my MO for a really long time. I like hanging out with my dogs. I like enjoying the natural world and I like traveling. So I work as many hours as I need to so that the businesses keep going, my staff feels supported, and I can live my life. Based on the language of product or service, that market size will be smaller or larger. What typical minimum market size do you typically need?
Tiny.
So,
Niche.
yeah, I mean, it can be as small as 10 businesses. It can be niche that tightly. My favorite example that I like to give is I was a crazy horse lady for many, many years, but I didn't just do horses. I did English riding, which is where you do not wear a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. It's very much not that. Um, but then I decided I was doing a sport called dressage, which is the thing where you prance around and people say it looks like the horse is dancing. It's not.
Yeah, the prancing shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But you wear your top hat and your tailcoat and it looks like you're dancing. Um, and not only did I do that, I did that with two specific types of horses. So Spanish and Portuguese horses, like from the Iberian Peninsula, and German warm bloods. Those are it. Two very, very specific types of horses. So it was a specific sport within a specific discipline within, so we niched down really, really tightly. And there were still thousands and thousands and thousands of clients in the world for me. And you'll find that that's the case for most of you as well. You almost can't niche too closely unless there are maybe only 2 or 3 players in that industry.
I have said many times, and this is a fact, I have never seen a niche, and I've seen a lot of them because of Business Builder and other coaching stuff we do and stuff I've been involved in. I have never seen a narrow, tiny little niche where a person couldn't make a 7-figure income from that niche. I've never seen it. Not even 6 figures, 7. Yeah, I have not seen it. That's a real niche. Sometimes people say, what about this niche? That's not a niche. A real niche, but it's super tiny, 7 figures. You can do it. Never seen it where you couldn't. That wasn't possible.
Well, we have somebody in the Business Builder right doing something like that now. He's working with worldwide companies. There are only a few that do this very specific thing, and his offering is fire.
But is this the mining guy or something else?
Yeah. The mining guy.
A good example.
Brilliant
Very niche
idea. Very niched.
He's going to make money.
Oh, Nick has a great question. Caleb mentions that he and I differ on the best time to incorporate. Caleb says once you make $2,000 a month, I say do it from the jump. Why? So here's my thinking. Get it fucking done. It takes 10, 15 minutes, about $100, and then it's done, and your behind is covered from a liability perspective. I would much rather that your company be liable for anything that were to happen, any disagreements, disputes, any weird thing that might come up. I would much rather have taken the 10 or 15 minutes to cover your ass from the beginning and don't have to go back and do it later. Start off on the right foot. It's the same to me as creating your SOPs. You go through the procedure, you write down what you need to do next, you add it to your calendar, schedule next year to do your renewal, and you're done. You don't have to think about it again. Caleb, you feel differently.
Slightly. Setting up an LLC or a corporate structure takes time, resources. You have to file fucking paperwork. You have to deal with an accountant. You have to file 2 tax returns instead of 1. So there's some level of resource and mental and financial resource, not much financial, out of your brain. And so my view is once it's a real business, you're making $2,000 a month, that's a real business. Then it makes sense to incur that bullshit to have that protection because you should have it no matter what. But I don't strongly disagree with Billy. And I've said this when I talk about this, even in Business Builder, when I talk about those guys, if you want to do it, get it done. I have no objection. Go ahead. That's fine. There's no harm to it. It's just that in my world, you'd wait a little bit, not long. You wait a little, but we disagree. We don't disagree strongly.
No, we disagree on so many things in life, but this is the joy of it. You get to hear both of our perspectives, and neither of us is right or wrong. It just is. I just like cleaning things out of the way, having a clean slate, not having to go back and revisit things, because I consider when I have to go and revisit things like that to be failure work. And that is my biggest pet peeve in the world.
That is how you think. Yeah. Her thought process is different than that on mine. I'm more of a scatter. I'm more like, yeah, that's true.
Right. He does. He takes more of a scatter approach, and I take a strafe them all, and we can't move on until they're all down sort of mentality.
I'm about you'll notice my advice is wait to get the money. I'm about going right to the money. And Billy is a little different. Billy's about do it right.
Yeah, we're both superheroes. We just wear different capes.
Right.
Oh, here's a good one. Top 2 tips for getting a more engaged audience. It's a question for both of us. And do we believe in the 1,000 true fans? Why don't you take this one first?
Yes, 1,000 true fans is accurate, but if you take our advice and you narrowly niche and you only sell high margin stuff, you don't even need 1,000 true. So what is 1,000 true fans? What he's referring to is an old article from about 10 years ago. It's a Tim Ferriss thing, although Tim Ferriss didn't write it. The concept is your job is to go out in the world and you only need 1,000 people who fucking love you and will buy as much as they can from you because they love you and they trust you. They love your content and they like you. You don't need millions of people. You only need 1,000. And once you have 1,000 people, you'll make all the money you want to make. That's true, but I think it's actually, if you take our advice, and most people don't. Most people just start whatever business they want. They don't niche. They sell whatever they feel like. If you narrowly niche, focus on location independent delivery, and only sell high margin stuff, you can get away with less than 1,000. So many times in my history on the internet as being a public figure on the internet since 2009, going back when I was just doing dating stuff, I was making way more money. And this is the truth, because I had conversations behind the scenes with these people, way more money with guys who had much bigger audiences than I had, like 5X. I'm not going to say names, but I could mention names you'd know, where this guy would have a way bigger audience than me, but I was making 5 times he was making because I was doing this stuff correctly. So yes. And in terms of getting a more engaged audience, as always, I can't answer that. So my YouTube presence has been great, but my blogging presence was fantastic, which is why that's all coming back now. Engaged audience. There's nothing I do to specifically engage the audience. I just make sure to create content that I know the audience wants. A lot of people are bad at this. If you create content, that's how I got well known on the internet, from blogging, and I would write articles that I knew my audience liked a lot and that I liked too. But I didn't write whatever I wanted. I wrote what I liked and that I knew you guys would like. And that encourages people to respond. And don't do this on purpose. I did this not on purpose. You can have very, very controversial views that are very weird. As you know, I have lots of controversial views that are completely against societal programming. So that includes some engagement. If you say long-term monogamy doesn't work no matter what you do, there's going to be people who want to engage, right? If you say America's collapsing, there's no way to fix it, you're going to get people who want to engage you. So you can be a contrarian, but don't do it falsely. Do it if you really believe it.
That's it. I think my top tip would be authenticity. What you see with me when you see me on this screen or on any screen is exactly the same thing as you get if you knocked on my door at 6 o'clock in the morning, or if we had dinner together down in Mexico. It's, people can tell when you're being authentic. So bring that to the table. Don't be afraid. Don't hide who you actually are, because that's what makes you interesting. It's just being real. People see enough artifice every day as it is. They don't want more. Right. And they also don't want to be spoken down to. That's something I've noticed with a lot of the business guru guys. They're really negative. They kind of talk down to their audience like they're idiots for not doing certain things. I say, like, invite your audience in, show them the way. Don't show them that they're wrong. Show them the way.
I never call you guys idiots, do I?
Business guru, dude. Okay, but I do too. I mean, I'll call people idiots sometimes.
Often. You do it more privately than I do it.
I do a little more privately.
Yeah, I say it out right on for everybody, but yeah. But when I call you guys idiots, it's because, and I've said this 10,000 times, you guys who I'm calling idiots could make more money than me or Billy, but you're not, because you're not getting off your ass. So I say it as of, not out of love. That's not exactly right. I say it out of my mission is to make sure that you're free and you're financially free and you have your own business, your location dependent. And I know you'll never get there if you sit there and just fart around all day. So that's why.
Exactly. It's extra motivating. Yeah. And that's why we balance each other, because I'm the sweet one. He doesn't have to be.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. We had a question. Didn't listen from the beginning. If we lived permanently in Paraguay and had multiple streams of income through the internet, will I pay taxes in Paraguay, given that I'm a tax resident there?
No.
No, you will not.
Will not.
Pretty
straightforward. You have to make money from inside the country to incur a Paraguayan tax. It is a territorial tax country. So you can make $1 billion as long as it comes in from outside, from the internet, from non-Paraguayan servers or companies. You will pay zero tax, even if you live there all year. Yes.
Exactly. D asks if I think dressage event photography for Spanish horse riders is an example of a niche I'd approve. And I would say no, actually, because there are so many photographers and so many photographers who like doing horsey things that it's a really, really tough market. And you have specialists with the different breeds, specialists with the different sports that follow the circuits around. So that would be a hard one to make money, or to make decent money at. And of course, that is one of the prerequisites of a niche, that they can afford what you are.
That the niche providing. Can afford what you want to sell them. You do want. There are niches that are valid niches that have no money, so you got to be careful of those. Not every niche is created equally. The niche has to have some money.
If I were picking a horse sport, I would say that dressage is one of the wealthiest horse sports. So from that perspective, it meets the goal, but you're not going to be able to charge what you want. And there's just too much competition. So I would not consider that niche enough.
Right.
Let's see. What triggers the moment where you say, okay, this person's task is worth delegating to another person? It sounds like you'll always delegate ASAP as long as the business is profitable. For me, that's yep, I'll delegate it as soon as I can. So I'll generally learn it, or I'll have someone, like in Caleb's company, we'll have Jeff, who is the former ops manager, learn how to do something and then delegate it. Because really what the ops manager needs to do, in my mind, is understand how things work. They don't need to do everything. So I tend to hand off most things as quickly as possible, almost everything as quickly as possible. Unless they're things that I want to work on. Unless there are things like, say Jeff, it has decided that operations was fun and he likes doing it, but he loves doing the business builder. So a lot of that's going to come from what the people on the team want to do, what motivates and drives them to their best performance. And if it's switching roles, if it's delegating some of their busy work to someone else, I am absolutely fine with that. I let my staff tell me what they would like to delegate by asking the same questions I ask the business owners. What's taking up too much of your time? What do you wish we can magically make go away or automate?
And what do you want to
procrastinate? So and what do you want to do? And Caleb is very, very good at asking his teams that question.
You constantly want everyone in your company, you want to steer them in the direction they want to go. And you want to repeat to them constantly, I want you, person in my company, to do what you want, to do what you think you're best at. I don't want you to do necessarily what you were hired to do, because maybe you could do something else better. So if you want to go over here and do this, let's put you over there. Let's do it. And we'll figure out how to replace you. That's easy or easier.
Exactly.
I want everyone in the country. We call it right. There's a term for it. Right people in the right seats, or right butts and right seats.
Right in the right chair.
Yeah. You want everyone in the company, the ideal company, and you can pull this off when it's a smaller business. The ideal company is that 100% of the people in the business are doing exactly what they want to do. That's a company that you will make so much money on. Oh my God. When everyone is doing what they want. Yes.
Yes. You'd be amazed by how much we reduce turnover too. We almost, in Caleb's company, we've had very, very few changes over the years, very few. And usually it's because people weren't able to perform as autonomously as we would like them to.
But even that was rare.
Exactly. Incredibly rare. Let's see. Does our coaching help with creating an irresistible offer, copywriting, and where to find people that are motivated to buy your offer? Of course it does. That's what we live and breathe for doing. Both Caleb's team and my teams. We love it.
Yep. Exactly that.
Let's see. Niche idea. Consulting, coaching men in trades who want to add a second stream of income by learning videography. Terrible niche. Terrible. And the reason for that, again, is there are a lot of people with cameras. And it's, especially in the visual arts, there are many people who take this very seriously. Do I think videography is a good sideline if you're already working in the skilled trades? Hell no, you're going to get paid a lot more in the trades. Figure out a way to scale that business and to delegate doing some of that business so that you can be plying your trade and making the most money possible. I think videography is a piss poor way of making money unless you are very, very talented indeed.
Yeah, there's a cap on your income as a videographer.
Mm-hmm. Even if you have the best shooting and editing teams in the world, they're expensive. I just wouldn't go that route.
No.
Let's see. Follow up on a previous question. Would it make any difference if I have a Paraguayan registered business or a foreign registered business? What would you recommend in my case?
So we did address that earlier. You came in late. If you have a business in Paraguay, then it's different because you're receiving income from Paraguay. You may incur a tax if you're there for most of the year, but that gets a little more complicated. We wouldn't be able to answer that question, but that's a little different. If you have a Paraguayan corporation, you're receiving money from inside Paraguay, you could be susceptible to tax if you spend most of the year there, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But again, ask a tax professional. Unfortunately, that is not a role that either of us can fill.
Yeah. There are reasons to have a Paraguayan corporation. There are reasons to do it. I'm going to do it. There are reasons to do it. But if you are just a pure digital nomad type guy making all your money from the internet, there's no reason to do it unless you're doing something odd.
Let's see. Nick says, how do we stay in the loop once there are multiple levels of delegation 3, 4, 5 degrees away from you? At some point, issues may stay hidden until it's too late. That's true. They may stay hidden until it's too late. But what we try very hard to do is have an open culture, meaning that any person in the company can come to myself or another person in a leadership position if they need to. We don't consider it tattletaling. We don't encourage it, but we create those opportunities to check in with people. So even Caleb talks to every member on his team at least once a month with a 15-minute stand-up one-on-one call. So we're always checking the pulse of the people on our team and having our department heads do the same. You're right. There are times that we're going to be out of the loop, but we are never so far out of the loop that we don't know what's happening as a result of having our project management tools. So we can always see how that delegation is working and how each person is performing, where things are lagging behind, where there might be problems. It's all really visible to us because we've structured the business that way by using project management and making that the source of all truth in the business.
And I constantly tell everyone I work with, I need to hear bad news. And again, in a perfect company, which is probably not possible, the owner of the business is one of the first people to hear the bad news. In most companies, he or she is usually the last person, which is a problem. Mm-hmm. So I'm constantly telling everyone I work with, if there is a problem, I need to tell me. I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to fire you. I don't get mad. I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to deal with the problem. So please tell me bad news. I want to hear bad news. It's very important.
Yep, and just keeping that ethos alive, letting everyone know that everyone else is here to support one another. They're not competing, because we all know that they have slightly different goals, and we're going to honor that.
Right.
So it's another part of the ethos that we bake in from the beginning, or from the time that I step in my foot in the door of a new business. We start creating that ethos, and it solves for many of these things.
Right. Let's go for another, you're popular. So let's do more Q&A for another 10 minutes, guys. Then we'll wrap this up. So 10 minutes. So if you have any more questions, get them in now. 10 minutes.
Okay.
Cool. And Billy will be back. If not next week, the week after.
What are some niches that shocked you because it made money so quickly? E.g. handstand guy. I do not know handstand guy.
There's a guy online who makes a 6-figure income teaching people how to do handstands.
Sweet.
Yep.
I dig it. You know, the one that struck me, I years ago, just for fun, because I'm a nerd, and I needed to follow the dopamine, I found out that lilacs, like, you know, those purple flowers in the spring, are edible. And I made jelly out of it. And I took it to a farmer's market and sold out like instantly. And I started this obsession of following the dopamine to see which flowers were edible and tasted good as a jelly and how we could use them. And I started making money instantly.
There are
now
really quick.
niches like
hang
that.
on. I want to make a note about what you just said. This is really important. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want you guys to listen to what she said. She followed the dopamine by doing what? By taking action in the marketplace and making money. She didn't follow the dopamine by smelling the flowers and farting around in her kitchen all day. She took action in a way that actually earned money. She went into the marketplace and conducted business in the marketplace and discovered something was profitable by doing that. So that's what she means by that's the correct way to follow the dopamine. Is you make money, you're actually doing something productive and real that generates profit and income, instead of just dorking around your house or screwing around with your friends or whatever that stuff is. Sorry.
Right.
I want to make sure.
So you're right. Instead of like watching a bunch of Facebook reels or Instagram reels about how somebody else started a food business, I just said, I'll just make a bunch of this shit, throw some labels on it. Do I know how to make great labels? No, but I can hire someone online for a few dollars. We'll slap labels on it, and here's an event nearby. Let's just go and see what happens. Almost every niche surprises me that way. You guys, we have in every single iteration of the Business Builder, and I'm not exaggerating, we have people who are doing research on their niche to just validate, like, hey, is this really the issue that you have in your business? Or is it just something I'm projecting, right? So we had them do outreach via LinkedIn and some cold calling. And invariably, at least one person gets an offer of work, an offer of a contract.
Right then and there.
Yep, just by making outreach calls. And it doesn't even seem to matter what the niche is.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most surprising ones will rear up and you're like, how?
Like, what the hell?
You weren't even sure what your idea was, but look at you. They said, hey, do
well,
you
that happened with the guy.
You said yes.
That happened with the Peru guy in our current group.
That's exactly what I was thinking of this last one, George.
Yeah, they do research and they get clients and they get customers. Some people made thousands of dollars in the first few weeks of the program because during the research, you talk about their problems and they go, well, can you help us with that? And you're like, well, yes, I can.
Exactly.
Yep.
So honestly, what shocks me about making money quickly is more the attitude than the actual niche. It's never the actual niche that I'm impressed with. And some of the most things that we think are the most strong niches don't take off because it really is a matter of just putting yourself out there.
Right.
I know that wasn't the answer you're looking for, but the answer is the magic can come from anywhere. Let's see. Starting an essay, the equivalent of an LLC in Paraguay, is not too hard. Yep, it is really straightforward. Paraguay is pretty easy. It's easier than a lot of other countries to get into the governmental offices to actually get answers. So perfect. Will asked, if I transfer my Canadian real estate assets to a Hong Kong corporation, would I be able to escape Canadian capital gains taxes and tax on rental income? I do not know the answer to that question.
The answer is probably yes, but there's a procedure you're going to have to go through. I've talked to a few Canadians who have done things like this. The answer is generally yes, at least long-term, yes. If you're, well, it also depends, again, it depends on where you are. If you're going to stay in Canada 12 months out of the year and just offshore some stuff, you'll get some benefits, but you'll still have to pay taxes as a Canadian resident because you're a tax resident in Canada. Now, if you go set up a Hong Kong corporation and move to Hong Kong, 50% flat tax, or no, it's a little more now. Different story. So again, it depends on not just where your country C is, where your corporate structure is, where you are. That's why I'm in Dubai part of the year and Paraguay the rest of the year. Both places are zero tax jurisdictions for me. So it's not just where your business is based.
Clever. Nick asks, how do I plan an exit? So with every company that I jump into, whether it's as a coach, consultant, implementer, or it's one of my own, my exit strategy is something I plan from the very, very, very beginning, because I know that I cannot stay and do every job, take on every role. And that's why I start documenting things from the beginning. That's why I create that ethos of documentation and one point of truth for the entire business, because I can package that up and turn it over to someone else who will then have visibility into everything that I and the team have done for the history of time if I want to make that available to them. And for me, all I have to do literally is say, okay, here you go. Here's access. Here's where you find things. And I can literally just step right out because everything that I do is already documented.
Yeah, Billy's really good at that. Yep. That's why she can be involved in 9, 10, 11 companies at once and make that work.
Exactly. My favorite marketing methods, I don't use them very often. I do have come from a marketing background. My first big corporate job was working as a marketing assistant in a company for years, doing trade shows and other fun things for a company that made stainless steel process vessels and piping. So it doesn't get more exciting than that. Let's see. But I love organic marketing. I'm a huge fan of organic marketing. I don't believe in throwing money at it unless you need to. So for me, joint ventures, doing things like this with Caleb, where we're podcasting together, getting my name out there, but I can still remain behind the curtain most of the time if I wish. That's my favorite way of marketing, having other people market me. Caleb says nice things about me, I guess, all the time. So that's how I market. But
nice. Must be nice.
Giving yourself opportunities to speak, I think, is the greatest marketing tool possible. People, again, get to see who you really are. You're not forced to throw something together within a limited, time frame of visibility. It just, to me, it's a much better opportunity. So look for opportunities to speak. Let's see. Caleb, you've probably said this a million times, but is Business Builder mainly business to consumer?
Ooh.
Absolutely not. No,
the opposite.
We do not encourage that, actually. It is much easier to start a business-to-business venture. Most people are afraid of doing that because of their own internal beliefs, but we help you get past that nonsense.
So let me encase the whole thing for how we do it in Business Builder. So this is my view on it. This is what I tell people, and Bill, you probably tell them something a little different. This is what I tell people. B2C or B2B, once you figure out your niche and the problem, if that's what you feel passionate about, if that's what you're excited about and want to do, and it's B2C, then go ahead. If you don't, what I say is, if you don't care, if you have a preference between B2C or B2B, do B2B. Why? Because you can make more money more quickly. It's a higher quality of customer. You can charge more money. There's less bullshit and people wanting refunds and complaining about stupid crap. So there's advantages of B2B over B2C. But can you make money with B2C? I've made quite a bit, but I do both. I started out B2B, branched into B2C, and made that work as well. That's what I tell the guys. What do you tell them? You tell them something. You're a little more militant about B2B than I am.
I am a little bit more militant, but what I'll do is say, okay, your B2C opportunity is great, but how are you going to find these individuals? It's a much for your research. How will you find them to validate the problem? Because if you can't find them to perform the research, you're not going to be able to sell to them very readily either. It means your marketing dollars are going to have to be pretty hefty. and we don't believe in that. So what I often do is I'll flip the script and find a way of making that into a business-to-business offering instead. So, for example, I want to help people that need to find someone to remove their excess nose hair. I don't want to find the individual people who want their nose hair removed. I want to find the practices that remove nose hair and see how I can help them get to their client base.
Yeah. Good example.
We just put a spin on it. That's all.
Yeah. All right. Nick, this is the last question and we've got to go, but Billy will be back.
What is the maximum you are willing to pay when outsourcing a task? Percentage of the value provided. So in my case, it depends on, sometimes it's 100%. If I want to learn how to do something and I have somebody, I can hire somebody who's going to teach me a skill that I don't have and also perform complete something or provide a deliverable to my client, 100%, 120%. What is the value for my being exposed to that, having the opportunity to learn or having it done? Or what is the value I would be giving up if I did not invest that money? For me, it's usually worth it because I like learning new things.
This is where Billy and I differ. Because in my view, I almost the opposite of what she just said. I want everyone I work with to be a profit center. So I would not want to hire someone who took 100% of value. But Billy has different objectives than I do in that respect. So,
right. So I'm going to use that new skill to recycle it. And sorry, I got distracted by some of the comments. That was a very kind comment. Thank you, Dee.
I wonder how someone's saying, I wonder how many guys going to hit on Billy after this. More.
Well, she's still single, but
that's right.
Doesn't do the non-monogamy thing, so I'm very boring. But I'll make fun of you for being non-monogamous, and you can make fun of me, guys, and we'll get along famously.
We're gonna go. We will have a Billy back in. We'll have her on every other week at a minimum. We'll have an Ask Business Auntie segment every other week on Sovereign CEO here. Totally gonna simp for Billy. You guys are funny. Do we have plans to revive the 500K accelerator at some point? Yes, but that is kind of low on the priority list right now. There's some other priorities I've got that are way more important than that, like the book I've got to finish and some other things. But that's on the agenda for this year. We're going to change the name and change a few things. Billy and I have discussed it a lot. We have some ideas to make it less expensive and better from the things we've learned over the past few years. But the answer is yes, but it'll be a while. But
awesome.
Thank you, Billy.
And in the meantime, guys, we are always up for adventures. So we're planning some wacky events and things for the next year. So hopefully by the time I'm on in a couple of weeks, Caleb and I will have hammered that all out and we can pop it up on the website for you guys.
That's a good topic for us next time to go through the calendar for the events we're going to do this year, because there's a bunch.
Yes, and I can't wait to brag about some of the adventures we've been on this year or over the last 12 months.
Yeah, so you've already done a bunch. You're going to do 2. It's not even February, at the end of February yet. You've already got 2 logged, or you will by the end of February. More than me.
Exactly. Well,
you're probably more than me so far.
Talk about. I even bought a GoPro, and I learned sort of how to use it.
That's right.
Wish me luck.
I'm excited about Antarctica. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you guys very much. Have fun.
Great seeing you. Thanks for joining us. See you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Caleb.
Bye.
Bye.